has given the most remarkable, devoted service to the Queen, to my family, and to the country, and also to the whole of the Commonwealth.
Deep within the stone fortresses of power, an invisible clock is ticking. It is a sound heard not by the public, but by those who live in the heavy shadow of the crown. History does not wait for a leader to be ready. Yes, it arrives uninvited, carrying a quiet finality that alters the course of nations overnight. In the hushed corridors where secrets are the true currency, a single document has vanished from a high-security vault. It holds a truth so profound, it threatens to shatter the fragile peace of an ancient dynasty. What happens when the weight of an entire empire rests on a foundation that is beginning to fracture? This is the story of an ending that no one dared to write, a moment where duty and survival collide in the ultimate test of legacy. For decades, the system moved with predictable precision. Every handshake, every procession, and every silent nod was choreographed to project absolute permanence, but permanence is an illusion built by the architects of public relations. Inside the private quarters of Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere shifted long before a single word was spoken aloud. A morning briefing, sealed under the highest classification of administrative secrecy, had just concluded. In these rooms, sealed means a circle so tight that even breathing feels restricted. Only 6 individuals held access to the contents of that portfolio. 6 people who had sworn absolute fidelity to the institution, yet the unbreakable seal failed. The leaked information did not merely ripple through the political ranks. It tore through the fabric of the household like a physical blow. It was a precise, unyielding blueprint detailing the final public appearance of the sovereign, a national Thanksgiving service, normally a celebration of longevity, was now mathematically scheduled as a farewell. Beside the date sat the ultimate taboo of modern monarchy, a formalized timeline for abdication. The word itself carries a historic trauma, evoking memories of crisis and constitutional peril. To step down voluntarily is to admit that the human vessel can no longer support the divine weight of the throne. When the document was placed on the mahogany desk, the king did not reach for his spectacles. He simply stared at the text. His hand hovered, then flattened against the paper as if trying to steady the moving gears of time itself. He had waited a lifetime to fulfill this destiny, to carry the torch passed down through generations of monumental service. Now, the finality of his chapter was bound in leather and presented as a routine appointment. Watching from the periphery, the queen consort witnessed the silent transition. She saw the iron resolve that had defined his life, but she also saw the profound exhaustion underneath. It was a wound inflicted not by enemies, but by the relentless machinery of statecraft. The leak was too clinical, too specific to be a mere rumor. It outlined every ceremonial transition, the signing of the resignation instruments, and the exact hour the Prince of Wales would be presented to the world as the incoming ruler. The immediate reaction was a suffocating calm. No raised voices, no panicked commands, just a terrible freezing stillness that crept through the state rooms. A pale aide verified the security logs, realizing the betrayal was intimate. It was an internal rupture, originating from someone close enough to touch the future, before the current ruler had even released his grip on the past. As the king withdrew to his private sanctuary, a single urgent directive bypassed the traditional channels. The prince was summoned immediately. The dynamic of the palace inverted. It was no longer an institution managing a state transition. It was a family confronting an impending loss. Every individual within that inner circle experienced the shockwave differently. For the queen consort, it was the realization that comfort was an inadequate shield against the demands of the state. For the princess royal, a woman defined by stoic execution, it was a call to administrative warfare. She reviewed the timeline with a razor-sharp focus, identifying a critical anomaly. The authorization for the final appearance had been granted before the family council had even met. This was not a passive leak, it was an engineered acceleration. But the most brutal weight fell upon the next in line. Entering the study, the prince did not see a sovereign commanding an empire. He saw a father facing the inevitable sunset of his power. This is the cruelty of hereditary rule. To inherit the greatest prize in the land, a son must watch the person who raised him step into the twilight. The crown is not offered, it is surrendered. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales recognized a quieter, more terrifying reality. The timeline did not just advance her husband, it accelerated the destiny of her young children. It pulled them into the glaring spotlight of public scrutiny before they possessed the emotional armor to withstand it. When she asked if the children had been prepared, the ensuing silence provided the answer. The palace had outrun the family. Duty had conquered childhood. As investigators searched for the source of the betrayal, a long-buried memory resurfaced, casting a retrospective light on how this crisis began. Every historical turning point possesses a hidden trigger, a moment that seems trivial until viewed through the lens of hindsight. Months earlier, during a private rehearsal for an investiture ceremony at Windsor, a microscopic fracture had appeared. The king had paused mid-gesture. For a fraction of a minute, the carefully memorized ritual vanished from his mind. He had looked at the order of service, then passed it to his son with an expression of unspoken vulnerability. It lasted less than 60 seconds. The king recovered his composure, his face hardening into an expression of controlled dignity. But the seed had been planted. In the shadows, the architects of succession had seen all they needed to see. The machinery had begun to move, independent of the man who wore the crown. The grand tapestry of leadership is never truly finished. It is simply passed from one trembling hand to the next. Empires are built on the sacrifice of the individual, demanding that personal peace be traded for the survival of the collective memory. In the end, the crown remains heavy, completely indifferent to the mortal hearts that beat beneath its gold.